Hi, everybody, and welcome to Northeast United Methodist Church in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm Pastor Robin. We have come together on this, the longest night of the year, for a worship experience. This is the night of the winter solstice, which means that from tonight forward, as each day passes, the amount of sunlight that we have in the day will increase just a little bit more until we move into spring and eventually into summer, which is the part of the year where we have the greatest amount of light. Why are we coming together on this of all nights, especially when we're in a season that celebrates light, the light of candles, the light on Christmas trees, the light of the world? We come together tonight to acknowledge that despite what we may see on TV movies and what we hear in the Christmas carols that are coming to us from the radio or Spotify, that this may not be the most wonderful time of the year for everybody. The holidays are a time where if we are experiencing a loss of some kind or some sort of wound or hurt to our heart, that those things can be magnified. And as we hear all of the messages around us talking about this being the most wonderful time of the year, we may feel that there's something wrong with us if that's not the case for us, if for us it's not the most wonderful time of the year. So tonight we've created a worship experience in which you are welcome to bring whatever emotion you are carrying with you. For this is a time and place in which all emotions are welcome, and they are met by Jesus and held so gently by Jesus. You know, if all that we knew of Christmas was what we could learn from the Hallmark channel in their Christmas movies, we'd probably think that Christmas is always best celebrated in some kind of small, remote town. And we might believe that people who have been estranged for years always make their way back to one another, no matter how many disagreements they've had along the way. We would think that love always triumphs in the end, and that everybody lives happily ever after once there is the final kiss and the snow begins to fall. But that's not Christmas in real life for most of us, at least not for me. Wasn't what it was for the Holy Family either during the very first Christmas. For when you think about a young couple, with her being pregnant for the very first time, a teenager at that, having traveled a long distance to a place where they were homeless, where she was giving birth in a place meant for animals and not people, when they were probably feeling like a lot of us are because of COVID, cut off and separated from family that were important. You know, Mary's mother was not there with her, nor her cousin Elizabeth. And so when we think back to the first Christmas and consider it in all of its realness, we see that, yes, there was wonder there, and miracle and mystery. But it was also not perfect. And for us today, it's okay if we have a similar experience, if our Christmases are not picture perfect. So as we move through this evening together, I'm going to be offering you a variety of ways of experiencing the longest night, from music to poetry. We will have some special readings, and we'll also have a special guest who will be here to talk with us as well. And we hope that somewhere along this journey that we'll be taking together, that you will encounter something that will help you come to see, as Mary Oliver did in that poem you saw before I started speaking, that even darkness can be a gift. It can be a gift because when we find ourselves surrounded by darkness, it's hard to do anything else but just stop. And in my own life, when I stop, I have a chance to think about what the next step that God is calling me to take might be. And I have a chance to think about all of the steps that have gotten me to the point where I am. I have a chance in the darkness to let Jesus heal my wounds and to bring me hope. And I find that it is in the darkest and the most quiet of places that it's easiest for me to hear Jesus speaking directly to my heart. So, whatever you're experiencing in this season, whether it is joy or if it's like most of us, kind of a mix of feelings, we hope that this service will bring you some comfort. That if you are experiencing loss because someone you love has died, or because you are separated from someone you love, perhaps you've lost a job, maybe a relationship has ended and you've recognized that there is no putting it back together. Maybe you've lost a child, or maybe you've lost a long-held dream. Perhaps for some, this is a Christmas that you anticipate being the last Christmas that you'll get to share with someone you love, which makes it especially poignant and powerful. Whatever your experience of this Christmas is, it is welcome here, as are all of your feelings. I am really, really happy tonight that we have some words from Erica Staub, someone who has been a friend of mine since I first graduated from seminary a long time ago and was serving in my first appointment. I first met Erica when we were working together to bring leaders of faith communities in to learn more about interpersonal violence, so that when there were experiences of those things in their communities of faith, they would be better suited to deal with it effectively. And I knew right away when I met Erica that I was meeting someone special. You know, God has blessed me throughout my life by occasionally dropping these really, really neat people into my life when I least expect it. And Erica, I knew, was one of those people, and she continues to be. She will explain to you herself in her video clip that she continues to work as an advocate against violence toward women. And she is also a trained spiritual director and is one of the most deeply spiritual people that I've ever met, and someone to whom I look for wisdom. And so Erica will be with us tonight at this time because she has just written what I believe is her third or maybe her fourth book, which is called The First Christmas: Finding Your Way After Loss. In this booklet, she shares with us her own very personal experiences of loss and how she has walked through those with God's presence and God's help. And she takes now those lessons that she has learned and offers them back to us so that we might benefit from all that she has learned. We are especially fortunate tonight because I believe she's going to stick around for a little bit after the watch party and join us for a time of conversation. So if you find that you have questions that you may want to ask, there will likely be a time for you to do that. So, as we move into our time of observing the longest night, let me read for you this reflection that comes from stjohnsonline.org. It says, "The Christmas spirit is that hope which tenaciously clings to the hearts of the faithful and announces in the face of any Herod the world can produce, and all the indoors slammed in our faces, and all the dark nights of our souls, that with God all things are possible, that even now unto us a child is born. Thanks be to God. Amen." And now I have a prayer for you that comes from the book Cloth for the Cradle, which is from the Iona community. The name of the prayer is When the World Was Dark. When the world was dark and the city was quiet, you came. You crept in beside us. And no one knew, only the few who dared to believe that God might do something different. Will you do the same this Christmas, Lord? Will you come into the darkness of tonight's world? Not the friendly darkness, as when sleep rescues us from tiredness, but the fearful darkness in which people have stopped believing that the war will end, or that food will come, or that a government will change, or that the church cares. Will you come into that darkness and do something different, to save your people from death and despair? Will you come into the quietness of this city? Not the friendly quietness as when lovers hold hands, but the fearful silence when the phone has not rung, the letter has not come, the friendly voice no longer speaks, or the doctor's face says it all. Will you come into that darkness and do something different? Not to distract, but to embrace your people. And will you come into the dark corners and the quiet places of our lives? We ask this not because we are guilt-ridden or want to be, but because the fullness our lives long for depends on us being as open and vulnerable to you as you were to us when you came wearing no more than diapers and trusting human hands to hold their maker. Will you come into our lives if we open them to you and do something different? When the world was dark and the city was quiet, you came. You crept in beside us. Do the same this Christmas, Lord. Do the same this Christmas. Amen.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Erica Staub-Absher, and I am the director of Hope Center, which is a domestic violence sexual assault agency here in Minnesota. And I'm also the author of The First Christmas, which is a book about finding your way after loss. I am here today because for a while I lived in sunny South Carolina, and I had the chance and opportunity to meet Pastor Robin while I was there. I worked at the coalition, and she worked with us on an initiative to encourage faith communities to work more closely with domestic violence and sexual assault. And so that is how we met. Another little fun fact is that when I was there, this is not the fun part, but my grandmother passed away. And so I came back up to Minnesota, came back home, and went to the funeral. And then I went back down to South Carolina. Fast forward a few months, and it was Christmas time, and I wasn't going to be able to go home for Christmas. And Pastor Robin knew that I was feeling a little sad about that and invited me to the longest night service. And so that was so incredibly powerful and such a healing opportunity for me to be in a place where I could show up as I was, where I didn't need to worry about being joyful, being in the Merry Christmas spirit, where I could just simply be where I was at, which was sad and a little lost and a little lonely. And I just so appreciated the chance and opportunity to be in a place where I could feel all the things I was feeling and know that God was inviting me and meeting me in that moment. And so I hope that that's what this night is for you, is an opportunity for God to meet you wherever you are in this moment. Since then, I have went on to author, this is my third book, and I've also started a spiritual direction program and completed that as well. So I think it's always fun to contemplate, where God shows up in your life and how things weave together. So it's just such a blessing to be able to speak to you this evening and to share some of the things that I've learned along the way about grief and particularly during Christmas time, how it can be a hard time. So I'd like to read a little bit to you from the book. And the first chapter is called The Merry Dilemma. Christmas is coming, and it brings so much anticipation, so many pieces of joy, of light, and yet for many, it brings longing and pain. You may be one of the many who are in the midst of various in-betweens, struggling with not feeling the joy, with feeling the pain of feeling disingenuous when saying Merry Christmas. The first Christmas after my divorce and the unexpected death of my brother, I simply didn't. I stopped saying Merry Christmas. The words felt so hollow and the pain so deep, and the gap between the joy of the outside world and the darkness in my heart so wide. I allowed myself to say, you too, and offer a small smile, but there was no Mary that year. I wish somebody would have told me that was okay. I wish somebody would have reminded me that this won't last forever. For right then in those moments there was no Mary, and that was okay. I struggled with wanting to feel Mary. I wanted so desperately to be normal. I wanted to care, but there wasn't enough energy, no room in my heart for any Mary. The grief took up too much space. My friend who had lost her daughter shared with me about a Christmas card she received. At the bottom of the card, a well-meaning friend had written, I hope all is well. Her eyes filled with tears and her voice broke as she shared the unintended pain that those words had caused. This is the second year without her daughter, and all is not well. Although she knows that the capacity to feel joy, to see beauty, to share love will increase, right now it's overshadowed by the grief and loss. Those words stung, a reminder that life is permanently changed. There is a before and an after. It is hard to trust that it ever will be well again when the loss looms so large. Other friends are struggling with the desire for the perfect Christmas when children are melting down, parents' nerves are strung tight, and everyone just feels overwhelmed and overstimulated. For everyone, it can feel just like too much. Often it feels that the expectation is coming from every direction of the need to have the perfect Hallmark Christmas. We all need to remind each other to hold ourselves gently, to know that our efforts are enough, even though it doesn't always feel like it. The magic of Christmas is that grace weaves its way in between the difficult moments, that often there's a sparkle of light when you least expect it, and that meaning can be found in the simple moments shared together. And this year is going to look different anyway. It's going to look different for all of us. People have different expectations about what Christmas during a pandemic will look like. And we're already grieving so many losses, the losses of our regular activities, of the opportunities for our kiddos to join in sports, of the opportunities for us to be together in ways like going to church on Sunday and in all these other pieces. So there's a lot of grief for this year in particular, and it makes grieving any of their losses especially hard. Another little nugget of wisdom that Pastor Rabin had shared with me, because I remember thinking, why does this hurt so much? And why is this so hard? And she had said, when you have a loss, it amplifies all of the other losses. And that instantly made so much sense to me. And I just thought, yes, that's it, because you remember all of the other times that you've experienced loss. And so it does accumulate, and it does kind of add up in a different way. And it also provides you the awareness and the understanding that it always won't be this way, that things do shift and they do change, but sometimes it's just heavy and it's hard. And so that's why part of the book is a permission slip. And so that's chapter 2 is called Your Permission Slip. And it says, if you're in the midst of grief, you have permission to not say Merry Christmas. You have permission to be frustrated, to be hurt, and be upset by well-meaning friends and family who don't understand the depth of your pain, the place you are in, or the difficulty that this season might bring. You have permission for the lights, the decorations, the songs that are meant to bring you hope and joy, instead to sting your heart and illuminate the gap between what you want and what you have. You have permission to cling to the love of those that surround you, to take more than you give. You have permission to trust that someday you will be able to give again, when life fills you and it is your turn to support, to offer hope, and to be the light. You also have permission for that time not to be now. You have permission to feel great love in the midst of great loss. You have permission to miss that person, place, or thing that you have lost, while holding space in your heart for the possibility of what is yet to come. And for those who are grieving the loss of someone you love, you have permission to say their name, to bring them up in conversation, to bring up the memories, the love, and the loss that you feel. You have permission to cry and to laugh and to remember to share those memories. You have permission to feel anger, anger at the loss, anger at the changes you see in yourself and others, anger that you're forced now to take on new roles, new responsibilities, new challenges that you didn't sign up for. You have permission to feel numb. You have permission to simply just make it through, to have your celebration be that you did it. Somehow, some way you made it through. Not elegantly, not with any flourish, but instead without fanfare, without makeup, fancy ribbons, or bows, slogging through one day at a time. You have permission to lose yourself in the elegance, in the beauty, in the meaning of the season. Perhaps you can feel it all. Perhaps this year is poignant, and somehow time seems suspended, and there is a shimmer in the air that you can't quite describe. Perhaps this is the year you feel closer than ever to love. You have permission for this to be a magical Christmas, where for the first time you truly feel yourself in Mary's fear, trepidation, and bravery. Maybe you identify with the vulnerability of baby Jesus in a way that catches you completely off guard. Perhaps this is the year the young couple traveling by donkey in an unforgiving place, to a place where they are not welcomed, but instead given the lowest of places to rest, reminds you of your perilous journey over the past year. Perhaps you find yourself completely overcome by the parallels and the peace that passes all understanding. Perhaps this year you feel closer than ever to the angels, to the traditions and the memories of the past Christmases that wrap you tightly in the goodness of the season. This could be the year that you are more grateful than ever for the gifts of tradition and the knowledge that at least something isn't completely different. You may be grateful that you're still the bringer of the best apple pie or the sweet potato casserole that everyone clamors for. Thankful that not everything has shifted in this topsy-turvy year. You have permission to not know where you are, to feel all or nothing of these things in rapid succession. Some days may feel you leaving like you're a human ping pong ball. You find yourself moving from one feeling to the next, all while feeling a little bit off kilter, and you have permission to not be merry. And so I hope that this evening brings you the opportunity to simply be where you're at, to be gathered with others who understand loss, who understand what it's like to not have the perfect Hallmark Christmas. I pray that God is able to meet you where you're at, to meet you in this time and to be with you, to have you feel that you are never alone. And even in the midst of darkness, there is light. And I pray that today and all the rest of this year and the beginning of next year, that you feel held in the love of God, that you feel held by this community, even though we've had to do things a little bit differently. But there is joy to be found. There's opportunities, things like being able to be with you this evening and to be beamed in from far away. There are pieces that, we're able to see. It may not be the same, but it's okay. And so finding those pieces, finding those people that are able to hold you wherever you're at. And I pray that this evening is a balm for your weary soul. I pray that this evening is just what you need it to be, and that some piece of it, some music, some of the poetry, some of the gifts that were shared this evening will help fill that hole in your heart, that place that feels not so great right now, that place that feels not so merry. And I hope that you know that you are not alone. I am sending all my love down to South Carolina, and thank you so much for letting me join you this evening.
And now I'll read for you a poem called Blessing for the Longest Night by Jan Richardson. All throughout these months, as the shadows have lengthened, this blessing has been gathering itself, making ready, preparing for this night. It has practiced walking in the dark, traveling with its eyes closed, feeling its way by memory, by touch, by the pull of the moon, even as it wanes. So believe me when I tell you this blessing will reach you, even if you have not light enough to read it. It will find you, even though you cannot see it coming. You will know the moment of its arriving by the release of the breath you have held so long, a loosening of the clenching in your hands, or of the clutch around your heart, a thinning of the darkness that had drawn itself around you. This blessing does not mean to take the night away, but it knows its hidden roads, knows the resting spots along the paths, knows what it means to travel in the company of the friend. So when this blessing comes, take its hand, get up, set out on the road you cannot see. This is the night when you can trust that any direction you go, you will be walking toward the dawn.
Just a word before you go. Just a few things you should know. Come and sit here by my side. Love, how I wish that you could stay. There can be no other way. I must send you on your own. Here's a place and here's a name. Love, she will hold you in her arms and show you who you are. Love, you'll be hungry, you'll be weak, you'll be tempted, you'll be free to turn away from me. Love, dressed in rags and far from home, you will wander all alone. You will wonder where I am. Love, you will laugh and you will cry. Love, you will live and you will die, but only for a while. There's a world that you must bear. They're waiting for you there. Lead them from the night and bring them to the light. Love, here's a place and here's a name. Love, she will hold you in her arms and show you who you are. She will show you who you are. She'll show you who you are.
Now, my friends, a closing prayer. Lord, it is night. The night is for stillness. Let us be still in the presence of God. It is night after a long day. What has been done has been done. And what has not been done has not been done. Let it be. The night is dark. Let our fears of the darkness of the world and of our own lives rest in you. The night is quiet. Let the quietness of your peace enfold us, all dear to us, and all who have no peace. The night heralds the dawn. Let us look expectantly to a new day, to new joys, to new possibilities. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.